This is the early edition, a curated weekday guide to major news and developments over the past 24 hours, curated by Veronica Galka and Lizzie Jennings, and read by an automated voice. Published September 30th, 2025 on Just Security, an essential resource for those shaping a just and secure world. Here's today's news. Federalization of domestic policing. The Homeland Security Department has notified Illinois it has asked the Defense Department for the deployment of 100 military troops to Illinois, Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker said yesterday, adding that the DHS claimed a need for the protection of ICE personnel and facilities. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Democrat Brandon Johnson condemned the plan as unconstitutional and politically motivated. Shia Kapos reports for Politico. Julie Bosman and Eric Schmidt report for the New York Times. Portland Mayor Democrat Keith Wilson yesterday echoed Oregon Governor Democrat Tina Kotek's criticism of President Trump's plan to deploy National Guard troops to Portland, describing it as not asked for. In a joint statement, 17 Oregon mayors denounced the move, saying that enforcement of civil immigration laws by militarized forces has no legitimate role in our community, and that they would take all legal and legislative options to counter this unprecedented, unnecessary, and unwanted effort. Aaron Pellish, Josh Gerstein, and Kyle Cheney report for Politico. Louisiana Governor Republican Jeff Landry yesterday asked Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to deploy up to 1,000 National Guard troops to New Orleans and other cities in the 2026 fiscal year. Landry said his request builds on the proven success of National Guard deployments to Washington, D.C. and Memphis. As of yesterday evening, a large-scale deployment of the Guard to Memphis had yet to begin. AP News reports. U.S. domestic developments. Trump and top Congress Democrats yesterday failed to strike an agreement on providing continued government funding ahead of today's deadline. Senate Minority Leader Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, pointed to very large differences on health care policy as the reason for the stalemate, while Vice President J.D. Vance said he thinks the government is headed into a shutdown because Democrats won't do the right thing. Tyler Pager, Katie Edmondson, and Michael Gold report for the New York Times. Schumer has floated the idea of agreeing to reopen the government for 7 to 10 days as a potential off-ramp for the prospective shutdown, drawing backlash from some Democratic caucus members, Axios reports, citing House Democrat sources. Andrew Solinder reports. Google-owned YouTube has agreed to pay $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit Trump and other plaintiffs filed when Trump was suspended from the platform following the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack, according to a court filing. The filing states that the settlement does not constitute an admission of liability and that $22 million of the settlement will be used to support Trump's construction of a White House state ballroom, while the remaining $2.5 million will go to the other plaintiffs in the lawsuit. In 2021, YouTube suspended Trump's account after concluding that an uploaded video violated its policy for inciting violence. Peter Karalambis and Meredith DeLiso report for ABC News. Trump administration actions. The acting U.S. Attorney for Nevada, Sigil Chattah, in July asked the FBI to launch a sweeping voter fraud probe into debunked Republican claims about the 2020 election, according to a government document seen by Reuters. According to the document, Chattah told senior officials she wanted to exonerate the 6 Republicans who were prosecuted for posing as fake electors in Nevada and to remove illegal aliens from voter rolls, which would possibly lead to a reallocation of census numbers that would impact the race for Nevada's 4th congressional district seat. The seat is currently held by Democrat Representative Stephen Horsford. She also told the officials she hopes to demonstrate an ongoing conspiracy between the Biden White House and state attorneys general. Until April, Chadha was the attorney of one of the fake electors and represented the Nevada GOP in a lawsuit alleging that the state failed to maintain accurate voter rolls. Legal experts said she has multiple conflicts of interest and should recuse herself from any investigations involving certain legal clients or political matters she was involved with directly. Sarah N. Lynch reports. Multiple top U.S. military leaders, including Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Dan Kane, have raised serious concerns about the Trump administration's forthcoming defense strategy, several current and former officials suggest. Several sources described a sense of frustration with the myopic plan that they think may be potentially irrelevant given Trump's highly personal approach to foreign policy. Much of the criticism centers on the draft strategy's emphasis on threats to the U.S. homeland, even as China continues a rapid military buildup, the sources suggest. Noah Robertson, Tara Kopp, Alex Horton, and Dan Lamoth report for The Washington Post. The Housing and Urban Development Department yesterday fired 2 civil rights lawyers who last week spoke to the New York Times about the Trump administration's attempts to limit enforcement of the Fair Housing Act, the lawyers said. One of the lawyers was given a letter stating that he engaged in misconduct that included the disclosure of non-public information. Deborah Kamen reports for the New York Times. The Health and Human Services Department's Office for Civil Rights yesterday told Harvard University President Alan Garber that it is referring the school to the debarment process. The process could ultimately lead to Harvard being permanently banned from receiving federal grant money. An administration official said that the White House does not believe Harvard took sufficient action on alleged anti-Semitism on campus, and that debarment is designed for entities deemed not responsible enough to do business with the government. Natalie Andrews and Douglas Belkin report for The Wall Street Journal. The number of people charged with breaking federal drug laws has plummeted this year after the Trump administration redirected enforcement agencies to focus on deporting immigrants, according to a Reuters review of nearly 2 million federal court records. Federal drug cases are currently prosecuted at the slowest rate since at least the late 1990s, Reuters research suggests, with the slowdown particularly affecting cases often used to pursue higher-level traffickers. Brad Heath reports. Editor's note, readers may be interested in Margie O'Haron's The U.S. Deportation Industrial Complex, Arrests and Detention by the Numbers, Just Security, September 22, 2025. U.S. Foreign Affairs. Top U.S. aides led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio are pushing Trump to increase military pressure on Venezuela in an attempt to remove Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro from power, U.S. officials say. Julian E. Barnes, Edward Wong, Julie Turkowitz, and Charlie Savage report for The New York Times. Maduro has signed a decree granting him additional security powers in case the U.S. military enters Venezuela, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez said yesterday. The decree would allow Maduro to mobilize armed forces throughout the country and give the military authority over public services and the oil industry. Reuters reports. The Pentagon is urging missile suppliers to double or quadruple production rates of 12 critical weapons to resolve low weapon stockpiles for a possible future conflict with China, sources told The Wall Street Journal. Analysts say that the additional $25 billion in munitions funding agreed in early July will not be enough to hit the Pentagon's ambitious targets. Some people involved in the effort, both inside and outside of the government, worry that the targets aren't realistic. Drew Fitzgerald and Lara Seligman report. During a July visit to New Zealand, FBI Director Kash Patel gifted inoperable pistols that were illegal to possess under local gun laws to the country's police and spy leaders, New Zealand law enforcement agencies told AP News. The 3D-printed replica pistols had to be destroyed, the authorities added. It wasn't clear what permissions Patel had sought to bring the weapons into the country. Charlotte Graham-Maclay and Jim Mustian report. Colombian Foreign Minister Rosa Villavicencio yesterday renounced her U.S. visa in response to the U.S. State Department's revocation of Colombian President Gustavo Petro's visa on Friday. Astrid Suarez and Manuel Reda report for AP News. The 25-year-old African Growth and Opportunity Act, which gives some African goods duty-free access to the U.S. market, is set to expire today. A White House official told BBC News that the Trump administration supports a one-year extension to the program, but this has not been formally announced. Akisa Wandera reports. The Trump administration yesterday announced that 10% tariffs on imported timber and lumber and 25% tariffs on cabinets and furniture are set to begin on 14 October. Trump further pledged to impose a 100% tariff on foreign-made movies, though it is not clear how or when this would be levied. David Lauder and David Shepardson report for Reuters. Ben Berkowitz reports for Axios. Tech developments. California Governor Democrat Gavin Newsom yesterday signed into law the Transparency in Frontier Artificial Intelligence Act, which requires most AI companies to report safety protocols used in building their technologies and on the risks posed by their technologies. Cecilia Kang reports for The New York Times. Senators Josh Hawley, Republican of Missouri, and Richard Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, announced yesterday that they are introducing an AI risk evaluation bill that proposes to establish an evaluation program at the Department of Energy to collect data on the likelihood of adverse AI incidents. Ashley Gold reports for Axios. OpenAI is planning to release a new version of its Sora video generator this week that will create videos featuring copyright material unless holders explicitly opt out, sources told The Wall Street Journal. Keech Hagee, Berber Jin, and Ben Fritz report. U.S. immigration developments. The Trump administration yesterday evening deported around 100 Iranians back to Iran on a U.S. chartered flight from Louisiana. Iranian officials involved in the Washington-Tehran deportation negotiations told the New York Times. A U.S. official said that plans for the flight were in the final stages but did not confirm its departure. Farnaz Fasihi and Hamed Ali Aziz report. Israel-Hamas war, U.S. response. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has agreed to the most recent U.S. plan for a ceasefire in Gaza, and an end to the war in the territory is beyond very close, Trump announced yesterday following his White House meeting with Netanyahu. According to a Palestinian source, Qatari and Egyptian officials have handed over the White House plan to end the war in Gaza to Hamas officials in Doha. Hamas today said it would discuss the deal and consult on it with other Palestinian factions before responding. Trump and Netanyahu both warned of sharp consequences if Hamas rejects the deal, with Netanyahu suggesting Israel will finish the job by itself in the event of rejection. Kevin Liptak and Oren Lieberman report for CNN. Rushdie Abu-Alouf reports for BBC News. AP News reports. In a three-way call with Trump and Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani, Netanyahu yesterday apologized for Israel violating Qatari sovereignty in its recent strike on Doha and for killing a Qatari security official, according to the White House and a source. An Israeli apology was a key condition set by Qatar to continue its role as a mediator. Barak Ravid reports for Axios. Reuters reports. Israel-Hamas war, international and regional response. A number of European and Middle Eastern leaders yesterday welcomed the new U.S. peace plan for Gaza. In a joint statement, the foreign ministers of the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, Indonesia, and Pakistan said they welcomed Trump's leadership and sincere efforts to end the war, and that they are ready to engage with the United States to finalize and implement the agreement. European Council President Antonio Costa said he was encouraged by Netanyahu's positive response to the deal, and that all parties must seize this moment to give peace a genuine chance. The Palestinian Authority also welcomed the sincere and determined efforts of Trump to end the war in Gaza, according to a statement published by the PA-backed Wafa news agency. Rushdie Abu-Alouf and George Wright report for BBC News. In a meeting on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly last week, United Arab Emirates envoys pressed Netanyahu to accept Trump's peace plan and abandon any plans to annex the occupied West Bank, according to a source. Samia Nakul reports for Reuters. Israel-Hamas war. In a Telegram post, Netanyahu said that he had absolutely not agreed to the creation of a Palestinian state during his meeting with Trump. The newest U.S.-backed peace plan postulates that once Gaza redevelopment is completed and the Palestinian Authority is reformed, the conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. BBC News reports. The Israeli military continued striking Gaza City yesterday, with the Hamas-run Gaza Civil Defense stating that Israeli attacks killed a total of 13 people. BBC News reports. Turkey appears to have joined Spain, Italy, and Greece in monitoring an international flotilla carrying aid for Gaza, according to flight data showing 3 long-endurance drones from a Turkish airbase circling over the vessels for 3 days. Reuters reports. Russia-Ukraine war. Ukraine proposes to Poland and all our partners to build a joint, fully reliable shield against Russian aerial threats, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said yesterday while addressing the Warsaw Security Forum. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius warned that establishing a drone wall could take 3 or 4 years and Europe should prioritize increasing capabilities and capacities. Reuters reports. Editors note, readers may be interested in Michael Schmidt's legally available options in response to Russia's penetrations of NATO airspace. Just Security, September 29, 2025. A Russian drone attack last night killed a family of 4 in a village in Ukraine's northern Sumy region, Regional Governor Oleg Ryhorov said on social media today. Reuters could not immediately verify the report. Anna Pruchnicka reports for Reuters. Houthi developments. A missile attack yesterday set a Dutch cargo ship in the Gulf of Aden on fire and wounded 2 mariners, officials said. The French military's Maritime Information Cooperation and Awareness Center said the Iran-backed Houthi rebels were behind the attack. The Houthi rebels have not confirmed their involvement at the time of writing. John Gambrell reports for AP News. Other global developments. Thai intelligence documents show that China sent rockets and artillery shells to Cambodia weeks before the Cambodian-Thai border war in July. The Chinese weapons were packed into 42 containers and stored at the Ream Naval Base before they were moved north to the contested border region, according to the documents. Suli Wee reports for the New York Times. Local media in Afghanistan yesterday reported an internet blackout across the country, identifying the potential nationwide cut of fiber optic service as part of the Taliban's crackdown on immorality. Internet access group NetBlock said that live metrics showed connectivity in Afghanistan had collapsed to 14% of its ordinary levels. AP News report. Myanmar's army systematically destroyed Rohingya villages, mosques, cemeteries, and farmland to build security outposts following its 2017 expulsion of the Muslim minority from the Rakhine state, according to a UN-backed independent investigative mechanism for Myanmar report released yesterday. Reuters reports. Sudan's Rapid Support Forces paramilitary now possesses anti-aircraft weapons that could threaten civilian air traffic, drones similar to those used by Iran-backed Houthi rebels, and a Chinese surface-to-air missile system, according to an analysis of seized arms caches seen by Washington Post reporters, interviews with officials, and a confidential report by the Sudanese intelligence agency. Catherine Horold reports. Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday signed a law denouncing the European Convention for the Prevention of Torture. The legislation confirms that Russia's denunciation came in response to the Council of Europe's refusal to select a Russian representative to oversee the anti-torture convention. Reuters reports. Trump administration litigation. A federal judge yesterday issued an injunction directing the Trump administration to reverse the layoff notices sent to over 500 employees at Voice of America. The judge found that the administration had violated a previous order to restore Voice of America's news coverage so that it would serve as a consistently reliable and authoritative source of news. Min-Ho Kim reports for the New York Times. A federal appeals court yesterday allowed the Department of Education to proceed with plans to lay off staff in its Office for Civil Rights, reversing an earlier district court injunction. Nate Raymond reports for Reuters. The Justice Department announced yesterday that it has sued Minnesota state officials over the state's immigration sanctuary policies. The DOJ alleged that the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul and Hennepin County had refused to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. Jasper Ward reports for Reuters. The DOJ also filed a civil complaint yesterday against protesters and advocacy organizations who allegedly threatened and intimidated Jewish worshipers outside a synagogue in New Jersey in November 2024. The lawsuit has been brought under the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, which has usually been enforced against people who block access to abortion clinics. Perry Stein reports for The Washington Post. In case you missed it, yesterday on Just Security. Taking stock of the birthright citizenship cases, Part 4, DOJ's ineffective responses to plaintiff's statutory argument, by Marty Letterman. Legally available options in response to Russia's penetrations of NATO airspace, by Michael Schmidt. Xi's climate announcement, a disappointment, not a breakthrough, by Sue Binias. Thank you for listening to Just Security's early edition today, September 30th, 2025. If you enjoy listening, Just Security's analytic articles are also available in audio form on the justsecurity.org website. To stay up to date on Just Security's analysis of law, policy, and current events, go to justsecurity.org, subscribe to Just Security on Substack, and follow us on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Facebook, and Threads.